All right, y'all. Welcome to the Work with Grants weekly public strategy call. We are walking into segment 3 on January 28th. And look, we're talking about the relationships in our community. We are getting ready to go into February, y'all, and that is the month that we talk about relationships and all kinds of history and all kinds of important things that, February brings out a lot. And it doesn't just stop in February, even though that might be the shortest day or the shortest month of the year. Look, we're going to definitely take advantage of every day that we have together in February, because we're going to be talking about the relationships from the top to the bottom and how they impact each other. We don't realize how our relationships with our leaders are impacting our households. Look, y'all definitely stay tuned for February. We're going to talk about it. If you all don't realize how the relationships at our offices are impacting the relationships that we have at home, look, we're going to talk about it, because that's a real concern our community is still having when it comes to this work-life balance. So we're going to talk about it, because if you don't realize the relationships that you have with your children and the relationships that you have with those that come before you, look, there's a real issue that we are really seeing in our community about these generational relationships. And we're going to talk about that, because they are all partners within each other. And one doesn't exist without the other. This is why it's very important for us to, first of all, be accountable for what we do and bring to our relationships. But it's also very important for our community members to do the research and recognizing how their relationships in the community are impacting their relationships at home. How are they impacting the relationships at work? How are you all impacted with these balances of the work-life balance relationships? Many of us, look, this call to go back to the office that, the now president is, getting ready to reveal to a lot of the federal workers. Many of the federal workers are concerned about going back into the office. But look, that is a mandate that's coming up for federal. But if you think that it's not going to have an impact on the private sector too, you're absolutely wrong, because look, federal and private sector, you all might think that they are very different, but in very many ways, look, the federal leads a lot of the relationships that the private sectors are actually entering into. The private sectors oftentimes look at the federal as, look, they might set the standards. These are where the standards are coming from in America. We look to our federal leaders to set the standards. But look, in the private sectors, they look to them because they want to make sure that they're within their standards. But let me tell you, the private sector, they know how to expand their standards a little bit beyond what the federal does. And that could impact their workforce differently. That can impact their partners differently. So it's very important for us to not just pay attention to the partnerships that we as individuals have in our communities, but we want to pay attention to the partnerships that are in our communities. How are they leading and influencing the relationships that we have that impact us? And if we are not, as individuals, if we're not doing the research, look, then you're just relying on what other people are telling you. And that is a relationship that, look, in our communities, we rely on that. I'm just going to tell you quite nickly, many of our individuals, we go to these organizations or we look to these associations and our partnerships with them to get the information. And do we trust the information? That is a huge issue about, the information that's being given. Is it trustworthy? Has it been researched? And can you trust the research that it's coming from? Because even nowadays, if you all haven't seen, many of the things that we have researched and taught our kids, and we'll talk this about the education system in our communities, because that is a huge partner that our homes connected with kids, those kids that have those households that have children. Look, many of them go either to a public or private institution every day to get development that shares with them information about them. And if that information isn't correct, guess what? They are not getting shared the details that are correct. And I'm going to tell you, not all this information is correct. Some of y'all might want to debate that with me. Some of you all teachers out there, I appreciate that. Come bring the information, because we definitely want to make sure that what is being shared, we want to know if it has been researched. Has our teachers, those that are actually sharing this information with the students, whether you're in public school or whether you're in private school, look, has that information been vetted? And I'll tell you, sometimes it hasn't. I've actually talked to a teacher who said, look, she was in the middle of doing her board, I guess, or doing her lesson. And she realized, now, even though she went over the information before that, I guess in her, wherever she was in that state of mind, that she was doing the research prior to actually revealing it to the teacher or to the students, she thought that it was okay. But as she was sharing the information with the students, she said she realized that that information was not correct, and she had to immediately tell the students that they needed to do the research. Well, I'm going to tell you, yes, you all, students of grants, students of whatever it is that you are promoting on your regular basis, whatever job you are doing, definitely now is the time. Our community members need to definitely learn how to do the research, how to research the information that is given to them before they even start to agree with it for themselves. Because a lot of this information out here, and there's a lot of misinformation that is openly being spread, because look, here in America, we value the freedom of speech. We value the freedoms that we have, and that is a relationship that we as a people, we have a relationship with these freedoms. But look, what does that really do? Are we impacting our relationship with our vetted solutions? Are we with the vetted information that we are receiving? Or are we just passing on the same information unvetted, unorganized to others so that they can, do the research for yourself? Now, look, here we want to definitely make sure that we provide you with organized plans. Again, we have our programs going to the Work with Grants area, and you all can see the accountability program. This is what we're going to talk about today, because this is where we need to start capturing some of the things that matter to us. We can do this through the accountability program. But not only that, look, you can also start capturing the things that are being told to you. You can also start capturing some of the things that people are telling you are important that may not be as important that you think, that they think that they are. And this is where you can start to highlight yourself through your own accountability program, but then start doing the research to build out more of the information that you feel matters to you. And why does that matter? Because look, as long as you are given tomorrow, the day after that, look, you got plans, and you want to make sure that those plans are being practiced, are being initiated, are getting out there, right? Now, I don't know what motivates you all, because, yes, every person has their own motivations. Again, when we do our accountability program, you can even help determine some of your own motivations. You can find out if it's going to bring you in the money that you want to bring in. Is it going to bring you closer to the relationships that you want to be? Is it going to put you in a status? Maybe it's a status that you are looking for your own comfort. But then not only that, you all, what about the people that you reach out to and that you invite into your life, that you create partnerships within your own home with? And that could be your children. That could be your partners in life. You understand what I'm saying? But do you all have the same values? Do you all have the same motivations? Do you all have the same objectives? Many of us will find out, even in our own homes. Look, because when your children go to school, they are learning things that are different than what you learned when you were coming up or going to school. And their values may be changing other than what you are giving to them in your own household. Yes, you're giving them to them in their household, but look, when they're spending most of their time in school around hundreds of other people, trust and believe, they are definitely going to get influenced by the relationships that they are making in those areas. They are going to learn more information from those in those areas. And if we are not structured, or if we don't have these conversations in our home where you are learning what they have learned, many of our children aren't talking to us every day about what they've learned. Some of our parents don't know how to get out. Well, what is it that you learned today? Look, these kids are going to turn around and be like, nothing. I didn't learn anything. But guess what? They may not have learned much from their teachers, but look, they may have learned a lot from the students that they are around. They may have learned about what was going on in their friends' houses the night before. And that might be something that has been introduced to them new that now may not have happened to you in your house, may not happen in your house, but look, it is still going to impact your children. Some of these children are going to these places and they're seeing things on TV or in the commercials. And look, some of us even on the video games that when we give these tools to them to use, they are developing relationships with the tools. They are developing relationships with the items that are advertised on them. And if we're not having these conversations in the household about what commercials did you see today? Look, I just told you all earlier about a commercial that was very impactful, that I feel very impactful for me and the families that I'm working with, but maybe it's going to impact somebody else very differently. But are you all having the discussion? Do we take the time to understand how our relationships are working in our home and how they're working in our community? Now, a lot of times as we talk, look, when we have our relationships in our home, those are our, I would say, primary type relationships, because again, these are the impacts. We in our households, we have different rules, we have different processes that we apply to the members of the households. You know, some people knock on the doors before they walk in the door. Some people don't knock. Some people just walk right in. But look, in somebody else's house, that may not work. You're going to have to announce or knock every time. And I'm going to tell you, in some people's houses, when people come into their house, some people don't speak. Some people just don't speak. And is that how they were raised? Well, most people, when you go into the house, well, in some places, if you go into a room and you don't speak, that can be a form of rudeness. But in some places, look, some people, they feel like if you speak, it could disturb things. So these are why some of these conversations, especially when you're going in and out or you're hearing about other people and how they are handling themselves or handling certain situations, it does impact us. Now, how it impacts you, you have to determine that. You have to do the research to determine that. But let me tell you, there are consequences of understanding this impact. And this is where a lot of these grants come into play. When you do the research to find out these grants, and we talked about some of the National Archive grants, we talk about the genealogy grants, but we also want to talk about foundation grants. Look, there's a Spencer Foundation grant that has grants about education, and they have an array of grants that are open through February that I would encourage our community members to definitely explore, because it talks about a lot of relationships. Look, they have the ability for you to do research on your culture, your relationships with your cultures, with the relationships within your household. And look, if you all don't realize, we have cultural relationships in America have been very difficult. So this is the time that we can, even as individuals, bring our solutions to the forefront through grants, because we all have the ability to highlight a space where it can be improved. And if we don't realize that, then look, we're going to have these conversations more and more, because we want our community members to make sure that they are activating themselves with ways that they can progress. Look, we're done with the congressing, okay? But we're going to talk about that too, because it has everything to do with the relationships with our leaders and our community members. So y'all make sure you come back. We got one more segment to go over, and we're going to bring more information to you today. Thank you so much.